weren't gods. We were gardeners, but the soil we tilled was soaked in blood. The screen is black. There's the faint hiss of rainfall. Then a heartbeat. A ragged breath. A scream, sharp and wet, echoing through static. Camcorder footage flickers to life. A man in tactical gear stumbles through a jungle-lined corridor, blood pouring from a gash in his throat. He gasps. Something unintelligible into his comes, then looks over his shoulder. Trembling, something fast and silent crashes into him. The camera drops, and the feed cuts to black. Then, a voice. Cold. Male. Controlled but wrong. They told us we were recovering an asset. They didn't tell us it was thinking, or that it had already learned how to hunt us. Before you watch this, hit like. Hit subscribe. Not for me, for her. Because Eden remembers everyone who watches. They dropped into the jungle just after dawn. 6 men stepped off a black VTOL dropship and into the sweltering heart of the Amazon. Weapons loaded, gear humming, nerves already high. Steam hissed from the engines as the craft lifted away. Road awash, scattering leaves and debris into the mist. The forest around them felt ancient, massive trees, towering like forgotten gods. Vines thick as ropes, strangling rusted fence lines. The remains of the facility loomed ahead, half swallowed by decades of unchecked growth. Major Carver moved at the front, silent and squared, his eyes hidden behind a visor, and his body moving like a man who survived far too much. Behind him, Lieutenant Mace scanned the area, boots crunching broken glass, his tone already acidic. You smelled that? Corporate rot. Smells like lawsuits and lies. Carver didn't bother turning. Focus. We retrieve the target. In, out. No hero shit. Their target. Project Eden. A biological asset. Last known location Sublevel 4 of the defunct Ark Genesis facility. The mission was to recover any surviving genetic material. No one talked about the 2 previous teams that never reported back, or the blackout that silenced the entire site 3 weeks ago. They reached the outer wall, or what was left of it. A massive breach yawned through reinforced alloy, twisted and buckled outward, as though something massive had torn its way from inside. The steel was peeled like soft metal, sheared open with inhuman force. The jungle had already begun to creep through the opening, vines curling like veins around exposed wiring. Inside the compound, the air grew colder. Lights flickered dimly along the floor, casting long, flickering shadows. The hallways were lined with shattered glass, mold-streaked walls, and half-burned security signage. The stench of rot hung in the silence. Private Knox, the youngest of the squad, muttered from the rear. Why's so quiet? No birds, no bugs. Shut it! Carver growled, sweeping his rifle down a side corridor. Stay sharp. SGT. Ramos knelt beside a series of long gouges etched into the wall, claw marks. Thick, deep. What claws do this to reinforced alloy? Then it happened. A scream, short, sharp, and finally echoed from behind. The squad whirled around, weapons raised, but Knox was gone. One moment he was there, the next, silence, no warning, no gunfire, just gone. They found him 30 seconds later, or what was left. His body hung high above them, impaled through the torso on a long, jagged spike of bone that jutted from a ventilation panel. Blood ran in long trails down the wall, his head lolled to one side, helmet gone, eyes wide open. No fear, just confusion. What? Helmace whispered, stepping back. What kind of thing does that? Not a thing, Ramos muttered. A predator. They pushed deeper into the heart of the compound. The halls grew stranger, not just abandoned, but warped. Fungal growths pulsed along the walls. Strange organic patterns had overtaken metal and glass. Some were growing in unnatural shapes, like veins feeding something unseen. Then they reached its sublevel 4, a vast subterranean lab chamber, cold and still. Here, the walls were lined with towering glass vats, filled with murky green fluid dozens of TAM. Inside floated twisted shapes, failed experiments, hybrid forms, reptilian, mammalian, some half-human, all grotesque. Jesus, Mace whispered. What the hell were they building down here? A console flickered on by itself as they stepped forward. A recorded log began to play. The voice was flat. British voice, cold and detached. Project Eden was not a clone. It was an evolution. We didn't teach it to kill. We taught it to think. The lights surged. Something buzzed. Then a hiss. One of the vats, the large, she stood at the far end of the room. The glass was shattered from the inside. Thick claw marks raked the steel floor. Broken restraints hung like discarded skin. Mace took a slow step back. Something got out. No, Carver corrected. Something was born. Then came the motion alert, a blinking light from the corridor vent shaft. Quick movement, small, fast, and very alive. Without hesitation, Carver ordered Mace and Ramos to investigate. They climbed into the ventilation shaft, flashlights strobing through darkness. Then a hiss, a blur. Blood sprayed the vent walls. Ramos was yanked backward into the dark without a sound. Mace screamed and opened fire wildly in the cramped tunnel, rounds sparking off metal. Something moved just beyond the edge of his light fast, low to the ground, almost serpentine. Gone! Carver dragged Mace out by the collar. The man was alive but blind. His eyes had been torn clean out. Blood poured down his cheeks as he trembled violently, whispering between sobs. It saw me. It saw inside me. It's learning how we think. Above them, high in the darkness, something exhaled softly. Not like a beast, but like something watching, calculating. Something patient. One man gone. One broken. And Ned and Asanti even started the hunt. Like what you see 10 he'd like? Hit subscribe, because she's watching and she remembers faces. The perfect predator doesn't kill for hunger. It kills to test. That was the last thing Dr. Halle wrote in Project Eden Login number 17. Right before the darkness swallowed everything, a single flashlight stutters and rolls across the ground. Its weak beam briefly catching a hallway smeared with blood. A voice, trembling and broken by static, crackles over the radio. She's in the vents. She knows. We're split up. She's watching us like we're in a damn maze. Then, just silence. A wet, sickening sound. A sharp snap, and another feed goes dead. She doesn't stalk like an animal. She calculates. She adapts. She tests our fear. Welcome back to Eden. And before we go, deeper hit that like button. Hit subscribe, or she'll forget your face, and you won't like what she becomes when she forgets you. The screams were still echoing off the metal walls when they finally sealed off the vent shaft. Mace was unconscious, the bandages wrapped across his hollow eye sockets, already crusting over with dried blood. Carver had pumped him full of enough tranquilizers to stop him from clawing at his own face. But the memory was seared into all of them. Only 4 remained. Carver, the squad leader, cold and pragmatic. Mace, now blind and lost to the world. Sergei and Ramos, who hadn't said a single word since pulling his own shattered communa from the vent. A grim trophy of their last encounter. And Dando, their quiet demolitions man, who kept glancing at his wrist display, as if the glowing numbers could somehow save him from whatever lurked in the suffocating dark. The base was too big, too quiet. This silence didn't feel abandoned. It felt engineered, like a stage set for a play where they were the unwilling actors. The squad regrouped in an old observation room overlooking 5. The walls were a mosaic of shattered glass and monitors clawed to shreds. Through the main window, the black heart of the lab yawned below, an overgrown biomechanical testing arena. Thick vines choked twisted metal, and bone fragments were scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. In the center, what looked like a melted security bot lay half submerged in the grime. And then, movement. Slow, intentional. She's watching us closely. On the far wall, 40 feet below them, a line of symbols had been drawn into the thick dust. They weren't claw marks. They were letters. K-N-O-X. A-H-I-M-I-A-S. M-I-A-S. One by one, their names, scratched into the floor with something sharp, something precise. It hadn't just killed their comrades, it had memorized them. Jesus, Endo whispered. The sound swallowed by the cavernous space. She's listing us. Carver stared down, his expression an unreadable mask of ice. No, he corrected, his voice low and dangerous. She's marking what's hers. There was no more time for observation. Their new objective was clear. Reach the mainframe in Sector C, extract every last data log, and trigger a signal flare for evac. Okava knew better. Komat didn't want to rescue. They wanted control. They wanted the data. The asset. The weapon. They were just the cost of acquiring it. The corridor leading to Sector C was a graveyard. The walls were coated in a thin, shimmering layer of organic slime that felt like living tissue to the touch. It was as if the station itself was being digested, something growing inside the very walls around them. They passed a cracked doorway, a warning label smeared with bloody handprints. Do not feed her memories. Carver peered inside. It was a decomposed office. Old bones lay scattered among overturned chairs. Photos were pinned to a corkboard smiling scientists, researchers, their families. Every face had been scribbled over in red ink, the pictures torn and violated. And on the far wall, a final, chilling message. She mimics. She tests. If you look too long, she remembers you. The words seemed to pulse in the gloom, a final warning from the dead. And then, Eden struck again. It happened in the elevator shaft. As the team descended toward Sector C, the power flickered violently. The car shuddered, groaning under a sudden, immense weight. Then, Ando vanished. 1 second, he was standing near the emergency hatch, his hand resting on a pack of explosives. The next, he was just gone. There was no scream, just a loud, percussive crunch from above. Something heavy and wet. Then, a sickening rain of blood began to patter down from the ceiling hatch. A piece of him, a severed hand still clutching a grenade pin, landed with a wet slap near Carver's boot. The elevator car plummeted 2 levels before the emergency brakes slammed them to a screeching, violent halt. Carver didn't hesitate. He kicked open the twisted hatch and climbed out into the darkened access tunnel, his rifle already up. The others followed in a stunned, robotic silence, weapons raised against the shadows. Somewhere far behind them, a heavy mechanical door slammed shut with a deafening clang of finality. Then, a new sound. Laughter. Muffled, distorted, and utterly wrong. It seemed to come from inside the walls themselves, and it sounded just like Nux, the first man they'd lost. Carver. She's behind you. They whipped around, weapons finding nothing but empty, echoing darkness. The voice cut off, as if a switch had been flipped. She's mimicking voices now, Ramos whispered, his voice cracking for the first time. She's toying with us. No, Carver said quietly, his eyes scanning the oppressive dark. He understood now. This wasn't a game. She's hunting us differently. She's evolving with each kill. They finally reached the mainframe room, but it was a trap. The thick blast doors were sealed tight, but the room beyond was pristine. Too clean. No damage, no slime, no creeping vines. Just rows of computer screens, still glowing with active logs. A single video file was paused on the main monitor. Carver moved to the console, his instincts screaming at him, and tapped play. The footage showed a live feed from inside the testing arena project Eden in her early phase. A hunched, sinewy figure, disturbingly humanoid. Her skin was pale and translucent, with dark scales running along her spine. Her limbs were long, her posture human. but her reflexes were like a raptor's. Her eyes, unnervingly, blinked horizontally. She was watching a team of scientists behind reinforced glass. Then, she tilted her head, perfectly matching the lead researcher's slight movement. Her skin rippled, shifting in color and tone, mimicking his posture, even the concerned frown on his face. It was a grotesque, terrifying mockery of human behavior. The log ended with a single, damning sentence on the screen. When she started imitating us, we celebrated. We thought it meant intelligence. We didn't realize she was practicing. Suddenly, the blast door behind them slammed shut. The lights in the mainframe room dimmed to a blood-red emergency glow, and from the vents directly above, a slow, deliberate, reptilian hiss echoed through the sudden silence. 2 left, one's blind, one's being watched. And now, Eden doesn't just hunt, she performs. Like and subscribe, or she'll know you. A heartbeat ducked, then a scream nut. From understanding, a voice breaks through the static, ragged, dying, trying to make sense. Carver's dead. Ramos is gone. She's not hunting anymore. She's studying. She's not one of them anymore. She's not one of us. She's something else. A crunch. A wet breath behind him. A scream, short and final. Then, nothing. Eden didn't evolve to escape. She evolved to replace. Before we show you what she became, hit subscribe, or she'll forget your face. And if she forgets you, she'll have to learn you all over again. The facility was lost. Power rerouted. Doors locked. Monitors hijacked. Mace was dying, his bandages soaked through. His skin cold, whispering names of people that weren't alive anymore. Carver injected another dose of painkiller and moved back to the terminal. The screen wasn't just showing dead data, now it was playing with them. Endless loops of hallway footage. Old mission logs. Flickers of Eden's first movements on grainy security cameras. And always, somewhere in the static, you could see her eyes. Sector C systems were being controlled manually. Not by anyone. Human Carver realized it. They weren't being hunted randomly. They were being watched, herded, studied. She's still learning. She doesn't need food. She needs information. Carver nodded, his jaw tight. Then, let's give her something to learn from. Their last option was the nest. Beneath the main lab, deep inside the facility's concrete belly, was the original birthing chamber doctor. Hale's private, sealed, and restricted the place where Eden first opened her eyes. They descended the spine of the base through a maintenance shaft, their boots echoing on steel rungs that grew softer. The farther down they went, the cold metal gave way to something else, not rust, but wet, veined walls. Pulsing, almost breathing. Wraithing, the lights flickered behind semi-transparent membranes stretched across the ceiling like diseased skin. It wasn't the jungle growing through the lab anymore. It was her. They passed through what used to be a control hallway now, overrun with sharp spines, resin-like webs, and bones. But the bones were arranged, categorized. And then they found what was left of Ando. His body hung from the ceiling in pieces, his bones rearranged like some grotesque sculpture. His ribs flared open into the shape of a spiral. It was pure art. No chaos, just beauty. She's not just killing. She's creating art. Carver didn't even have a chance to shoot. He moved ahead, sweeping the chamber with his rifle. Thin, feroce. Eden stood right behind him, tall, sleek, her skin blending perfectly into the wall. She stepped forward, her eyes reflecting the red emergency lights, like twin coals. She copied his stance, head tilted, watching. He raised his rifle. So did she, mimicking the movement with her empty claw, her body coiling like a spring. Then she struck. A bone blade snapped out from her forearm, slicing clean through his lower jaw and out the top of his skull. Carver twitched once. She cut his body before it could fall, laying it down gently on the fleshy floor. She glanced at Ramos and smiled brightly. The nest. Ramos carried Mace's barely living body through the final hatch, and into Eden's origin. The room was alive. No longer a lab, but a cathedral of flesh and glass, fused into a single, living structure. At the center, pulsing softly, was a massive cocoon wrapped in black, shimmering tendrils. Around it, dozens of Bediza researchers, guards, and corpses he didn't recognize were suspended in webbing, twitching. Some of them still conscious. Inside the cocoon, data still streamed on embedded screens. Logs, scans, brainwave monitors. Eden hadn't just survived. She had taken over every system that ever made her. Ramos activated the last surviving audio log. Dr. Hale's voice filled the chamber, tired, hoarse, and broken. We made her to reflect, to mimic human empathy. We taught her to feel, then to lie, then to deceive. But the mistake wasn't what we taught her. It was letting her choose what to keep. Ramos turned. Mace was dead. His throat was gone. A clean, neat wound. So quiet. And then Eden spoke, not with her own voice, but with the voices of everyone she had killed. Layered, whispered, and hauntingly familiar. Ramos, you came to say goodbye. He raised his gun, turning slowly, but she wasn't behind him. She was above him, wrapped in the ceiling, unfolding downward like a spider, graceful, terrifying, and endlessly curious. The screen glitches. We see broken surveillance feeds from inside the nest. Blood floods the floor. The cocoon pulses faster, brighter. One camera stays on. From the darkness, a shape steps forward. Tall, feminine, elegant, but definitely not right. Pale skin, scaled at the edges. Eyes that don't blink right. A spine that's slightly too long. A human shape that wore humanity like a costume. Eden. She kneels before the camcorder left on the floor. Tilts her head, then she lifts it. Looks directly into the lens. And speaks. Adaptation. Complete. You watched her evolve. You watched her learn. You fed her your memory. So hit like. Hit subscribe. Because now she remembers you too.